Hello and welcome to the Moms Who Know podcast. I'm your host, Chanel Nielsen, and I'm joined again for the second time by the fabulous Leta Greene. Leta, welcome to the show.
I'm excited to be here again. It's always great to be asked back.
Yes, for sure. And I'm so excited to have you back. We had so many people comment and, email and just let me know how much they appreciated the last podcast that we did. And so we had mentioned on that show, we didn't get enough time to talk. And so that we definitely wanted to do part 2. So that is today. And I'm super excited to get a little bit deeper. So one of the things that I definitely wanted to hit on is we got into last time, we talked about hotness and your attitude is just so amazing. You're just so happy. And, you've found this way to embrace the good. And I love it. And one thing that I think people, if they don't know you, might say, well, yeah, it's easy for Leta, she's hot. Like, I'm not hot. I'm not there yet or whatever. And I think that people might not know kind of all that you've been through to get to this place where you are. So today, that's kind of where I wanted to go, is just talk about the things that led you to this awesome place in your life where you can embrace the good, where you know who you are, and kind of the journey for you. So that is a big topic, but we're gonna go there. So to start off, tell us a little bit about some of the things that you've been through, some of the hard things.
Well, I want to make a little joke because remember what started all of this was your little love note you wrote to me.
Yes.
So this is our second date.
Oh, it is, Leta.
Yeah,
second date.
Yeah, and so I'm on a second date, and you're like, "Here, tell me all of your stuff." I'm like, "Are we far enough in our relationship?"
I think we're there. I think we're totally there.
Okay, so a lot of people get that impression of me because I am a happy person. And if I could have, $1 for every time somebody says, well, Leta, you're just really happy. So blah, blah, blah. You don't get it. And I just would smile to myself for a long time because I knew what I had gone through. I knew what I had done. And the simple, if nobody has any more time to listen, the shortest how-to podcast in under 2 minutes and 50 seconds is that I've discovered that my God loves me. And I think we all have heard that before, but in discovering that God cared about me and would listen to me, and that took me talking to him, and not always in happy terms. I was sometimes really angry with God, but I talked to him and I started to listen to what he said, and that made the difference in my life. And it's brought me to this place at 44 that people are like, but yeah, it's easy for you because, but, in my original book, How to Embrace Your Inner Hotness, I talk about, the thing we kind of touched on last time of, being not confident and being kind of odd looking, and grandma telling me I was ugly and that nobody would love me. And this experience that I had, and I shared that in our last podcast. But since we did that podcast, I outed myself. I outed myself on a topic that I thought was maybe a little bit too heavy to put out there, because I felt like I was talking about the principles and that was good enough. But in our society, we are having a conversation about sexual consent, the Me Too movement, what goes into being feminine and, power and all these kinds of things. And I've been kind of concerned because one of the things that I have been through was that I was molested for most of my childhood by a family friend, and who was like an uncle to me. And in addition to that, my brother also got into drugs. And when he was in a drug-induced state, would not be protective as he normally would. And I would have to run and hide from his friends, knowing exactly what would happen to me if they caught me. And I was a trucker's kid who they dressed me up like a boy to keep me safe. So I did not grow up in a little bubble. And there was some distress in my extended family and in my family of origin. And my personality wasn't the squeaky wheel. And so nobody really had to worry too much about what was happening with me.
They
And,
just felt like everything was okay. Lita's fine. She's not complaining.
you
Things
know,
are good.
I wasn't on drugs. So I am not faulting my
That's
parents at all.
Yeah.
I do not want people to get that impression, because I know with whatever failings my parents might have had, they did their very best and they loved me. And I also think it's pretty scary stuff to throw, parents who are trying under the bus because of any human weaknesses they have. Because guess what? I'm a parent. The women we're talking to are parents, and we all make our mistakes. But the situation accumulated to the point that I did not feel safe and protected. But that was a combination of a lot of things. And so that left me being completely what we would probably describe as suicidal. Nowadays, I just wanted to cease to exist. But I remember distinctly thinking, I could not kill myself. I cannot die, because I'd be in trouble for making a mess.
Wow. And this was, how old were you when you were going through this?
I was probably about 8 or 9 when I started having what I would, what we now term as suicidal thoughts. We didn't talk about that then. That wasn't.
No, we didn't.
We didn't talk about that. I just didn't want to exist anymore. I felt, between what was happening to me sexually, what was happening with my brother, he would be physically, he would beat the crap out of me. I did not feel that I had any value at all. And at the same time, my brother was high. My brother as a person was a very kind and gentle person, but we put ourselves under the influences of addiction, and it is no longer our normal rational self speaking. It is the addiction. And I think it's very clear that we talk about where those forces are. There's the two forces. There's the good and there's the bad. There's God and there's Satan, right?
Yeah.
And being able to label it for what it is gives power. And so, though my brother was a good person, he was making bad choices that put him under the influence of evil. And if anybody out there is being abused and they love the person who's abusing them, which I loved my sexual molester. This was somebody that groomed me to accept this. They twisted my mind and my heart. And if you had asked me, I would have told you that I loved them. I clearly don't now,
Yeah. But I can understand. I mean, as you were so young, as a young child.
I think he probably started around 3 is when I think he started.
3 years old. Oh my gosh.
So I wouldn't have been able to describe what real love should feel like, because it twisted how any relationship in my life was interpreted.
Yeah.
Everything.
That makes sense.
And I want to be very clear that though I am somebody who's not just survived various forms of abuse to my soul and to my body and to my heart, I am more than a survivor. I am somebody that lives a great life, but it's taken working on me. It's taken looking at why I think things, why I do things the way I do. It's taken a lot of self-work, and that just doesn't happen. When we find ourselves angry, when we find ourselves hurt, what is that really? What emotion is that really? And where is it coming from? And so just because we've gone through these things, and I've looked at this Me Too movement, and I've said, wait a minute, we're getting to a place of anger, and anger, hurt, despair, revenge. I've got to get the power. I've got to get the upper hand. These are feelings that lead us to being secondarily abused in a different way. I believe that it gives our abuser more power to turn to such negative, angry emotions, because in a sense, though we may not participate in the same acts, we become a result of the abuse. And the real power that we have as women, the reason that we are so instrumental in society, and that if you can rape women of our natural ability to love and to care and to give, we've taken from the next generation all the good.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
yeah, I'm going deep, aren't I?
Yes. Well, and I just agree with that so much. I think that I love what you're saying. It's the whole idea of not letting yourself become a victim, not letting yourself be defined by the things that happen to you because you were a little kid and you didn't have a choice about what happened to you. The choice came from, you deciding what you're going to do with the rest of your life, how you're going to think about it, how you're going to feel about yourself, how you're going to feel about life. And that's the only choice you had. You didn't get a choice like, do you want to go through this or not? You had to go through it. That was not part of the choice. And so if you can somehow do what you've been able to do, I mean, that's amazing because then you get freedom. You get to be free from that.
Absolutely. And I believe that God gave us two things when we came to this planet, to this existence, however you want to phrase it. He gave us a body that I could push away an abuser, but I didn't know that was a choice I had. Right?
Yeah.
But as I started gaining a better sense of who I am, I was able to say no. And I didn't have the words for that. In fact, the thing that actually made me stand up for myself was that I could see that he was grooming the neighbor girls. It's 1 in 3 women who've been molested.
Is it really that high?
Yeah, and it's 1 in 4 boys.
Wow.
So when we are talking about Me Too and women are getting angry at men, well, hello, a lot of those men were abused as well. It's not just women that have the market on abuse. It's not just, us girls that are going through this thing. It is a way that evil penetrates and rapes our soul. And I learned when I had nothing left, when there was nothing of me at all, that there was a voice that spoke to me. And that voice was loving. And that voice cared about me. And if you have nothing but God, you can do what I did because I give God the credit. Yes, there were people placed in my life that said the right things to me, but there were also people who said really stupid stuff to me, really mean and hateful things to me. It comes down to what we choose to listen to, what we choose to repeat in our brain. And for whatever reason, I was given this at a young enough age that I can still be a young woman at 44 and say that the sexual abuse that happened to me has not been in my marriage bed, that my intimacy with my husband is not affected by what happened to me as a child. And by the time I was dating to get married, I considered myself a virgin because I was a virgin of consent now. It wasn't something that has been in our relationship. The good news is, in every bad thing that happens to us, every horrible thing, if we choose to turn to the love and the nurturing and the good in it, we get past the anger, the hurt, the revenge, all of which we need to walk through, all of which we need to experience because you can't just turn it off. You get to the other side of that. And if you find the love and the good and the positive, you will find the wisdom. And one of the examples, there was a little girl that came into our neighborhood, and dad has a drinking problem. And as the little girl is around, I notice that this girl has been sexualized. And I know that because because I was there. This is wisdom that I have gained through personal experience, hard fought personal experience, but I've gained that because I walked there. And through working with, kind of taking this girl and her brothers under my wing and kind of loving on them, I assumed it was from where they lived before because dad's an alcoholic. That's a pretty easy target. And a drunken stupor, dad confessed to me what he was doing.
Oh.
And the emotions I felt were like, not just for her, but for the little girl that didn't have the guts, me, to stand up for me. Because I was starting to tell you how what made me stand up for myself wasn't really for me. It was for him grooming the neighbor girls.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have any value. But as an adult, even though I'm not hurting from this on any kind of, obviously it impacts me in some ways, but I believe it's impacted me more for good than for bad, because I've chosen to look at what's the lesson. Where's the wisdom? And we have the choice with everything that happens to us to decide what we're going to focus in on. And if we focus in on anger, we become it's a second wave of victimness. And we've given up our power to anger and revenge. Or we turn to this love. And it's harder to pin down that. It's harder to define that, isn't it? But that is our innate power as women. And because of having had that experience, those children never spent another night in his home, because I had the backbone and to fight. And where other people who didn't have that experience maybe didn't realize quite how serious it was, or didn't know what to look for, or it's so hideous that we don't think it's real. But because I know that evil exists, I can fight evil. If you don't know it exists, you are innocent to it and become complacent. We can look back now and say, why did the people allow the Jewish people to be, mass gathered up and persecuted that way? It's because they couldn't even comprehend what was going to be happening.
Yeah.
And when you haven't had that experience, you can't be the warning call for it, because you can't comprehend it. And so those of us that have had that experience, it is our not only our right, but our privilege to stand up and say to no one else, no. Let's change this victim thing about me too, and be angry, and I got to tear power away from men, to let's walk through our pain. Let's become victors over it. And let's stand up in our society that this is something that we shed a light on, because in the secret, in the shadows, is where these abusers have power, male or female. And that we give our children the vocabulary to say no. We don't tell our kids you have to hug them. You can give a hug or a high five, buddy. Which one? When you say thank you. I told my children when they would fight, I would say, how does that feel? And they would, oh, well, it doesn't feel, I would recognize the spirit of evil with them. Not that they're evil little people, but when you're angry, what are you feeling? Good or bad, right? And that whenever you are feeling that feeling, you do not have to, if anyone's ever pushing you or being mean to you, you stand up for yourself. You say no. You don't do that. So in the playground, that was helpful, because if somebody was being a bully, they would say, no, I don't like that. Doesn't feel good. Stop. And when we were at a family gathering of a large extended family, there was little stories I hadn't really cleared through sharing publicly, but here you go. There was a cousin that just kind of, and was trying to force a hug from my daughter.
Okay, gotcha.
Right?
I wasn't sure what the sound effects were meaning.
Right?
Okay.
I was like, I haven't these are stories I haven't put out because you don't want to hurt people, But not this person, but the people related to them, Mm-hmm. Anyway, they're like, make your kid hug me. And I was like, she gets to choose who she hugs. She gets to choose that. And I think my daughter had the same kind of feeling I had. And she has the right to say no. She has the right to not say kind things. She has the right to defend herself. And I do believe that when we say, don't say anything if you can't say anything nice, I think that's a bunch of crap. Because a lot of truth doesn't sound nice coming out.
That's a good point.
We need to give our children the power to say no.
So I love how you've kind of turned into this crusader.
I posted this out of these are my thoughts and my feelings. And within 12 hours, I had a book offer, and I'm like, looks like my second book's on a light, fuzzy subject like sexual abuse. So it's all still soaking in for me, but I
Yeah.
thought I was dating in my way, if you want to put it that way, of, being kind to yourself and creating healthy boundaries and, within your own self. And now I'm like, okay, we're going to go to the deeper story. Okay, let's do it.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's just if 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 boys have been through this, I doubt most of us could name, out of 100 friends and family that we know, most of us don't know the 33 that have been through it. And it's because it feels shameful. And maybe, in some cases, it's because we don't need to know, obviously. But even with our people we're very close to, there's shame around it, and people hide it and haven't gotten over it maybe. And I think that because you're in this place that you're in where you can say, it's impacted you for good. I mean, wow, Leta, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And so it puts you in this position to be able to be a crusader. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I just get all excited, I really do believe that all things can become of good if we choose to look for that silver lining, if we choose to look for that. And I'm going to say something really controversial. Notice how I said earlier that I had to do a lot of work on me.
Yeah.
It is 100% my abuser's fault. 100%. Pervert to do that to a child. 100% of a rapist's fault to rape a woman who's drunk. 100% the rapist's fault.
Right.
But our society says, well, she was drunk. And I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? So everybody who drinks deserves to be. And I had an older adult female that when all of this came out said, well, Alita's always been a little flirtatious, sitting on people's laps. And, further in the conversation, I distinctly remember the word whore and just reeling from that. And of course, and even in myself that I'm in a good place with it, I didn't share because people will start doing the comparison game. You can look at someone like Elizabeth Smart. Well, I wasn't abducted by my abuser for 9 months and, married off to him, right? You start to do that. And we do the same thing with our beauty. Well, she's prettier, she's thinner. Oh, she's got a better life. We women we are so hard on ourselves that it's just easier to just have the wisdom of it and to not go into all of the nitty gritty of life. Because like I said, I could teach the principles, but recognizing that our society is now ready for this conversation. And I am in a position that I hope is not as unique as it seems, that more women will be able to say, yes, I too am having a healthy life and I am teaching my children to love and be smart, be wise, but that we can be whole again, and not only whole, but better for it. Though I would never want anyone to go through it, it does not mean that I am broken permanently. So the work that I had to do on me, the controversial thing is 100% his fault. But there's this very small little thing in me that I have to learn, that's taken me years to learn where my boundaries were because they were eroded away. And 100 different stories of times that people took advantage of me, maybe not sexually, but because I didn't know where to draw the lines with my boundaries. And that's the work I have to do on me, is to figure out where those healthy boundaries are and where healthy relationships are. And in my book, I'm going to share about how I did that. But the simple is, we get to decide who are our most trusted people. It's not who's related to you. It's not who's been your friend the longest. It's people who can be trustworthy, accountable, and loving. So for example, let's say your dad's a porn addict. Take the good and move them further out in the sphere of influence over your heart and mind. Because my abuser didn't just touch my body. He became a part of my thoughts. I filtered through what he would react and how he would feel to my choices. And the only person who should have that influence is our God. No one else should be in your head like that. But the power of why people do not step out of abuse is because the abuser doesn't just hit them or molest or rape them, they get into their head. And if you've been assaulted in a dark alley, that abuser becomes, every time you're in the dark, are they there? They get into your head. And your head space is your space. That is yours. You get to choose what plays there. And that takes a lot of work of working on your thought process. Because naturally, our brains are 83% negative. We take what's just given to us. So we have to do the work on us. It doesn't matter how deep the abuse was or whatever, or even if you weren't abused in this way, the same lesson applies, that we have to work on what's happening in our brain.
Yeah.
And I go back to the, yeah, go ahead, Jenna, I get all.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I was going to say, I think really that is the worst part of all about abuse. And it doesn't matter what kind of abuse, what sexual, physical, emotional abuse, it comes down to what you just said, that it becomes a part of your thoughts. And that's really, whatever you go through, that's the lingering deep, deep scars. And so you might have been on track to say something else, and you have such good thoughts. I don't want to cut you off, but what I want to know is this. You said something, you were talking and you said that people, and you specifically, can be better for having gone through this. And I want to talk about that because of all the things you said, I almost think that's the most controversial. I believe it and I think it's true, but I think that there will be people who hear it and say, really? I can be better for this. This is the worst thing that has happened to me or could happen to me. And you're saying I can be better because of it having happened, that or other hard things, really any hard things. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. And it goes to a fundamental belief I have. And I don't know how yet to speak about this without bringing God into it. Because I think when we understand that we are more than what we are just here in this moment right now, we're not an accident. And that I believe that when I die, I am going to stand before God. I believe that. And so to your listeners who maybe don't have a faith, I would invite them to seek God out, because that has been what has been the turning point for me. That has been how I've been able to find something beyond how I hurt. And let's just say God isn't real and I'm totally deceived and I'm just living a happy life because of that false belief. You know what? I'll take that. Right? Being happy and believing, but it holds me accountable to my fellow man because I believe we're all sons and daughters of God and, all that kind of thing. So it goes back to that belief that I'm not an accident. And that took time to get there. But once you get to that point where you know that there's something beyond you, you ask yourself the question, am I meant to be how I feel right now? Is this what God wanted for me? Is this feeling of despair, anger, vengeance? Is this how I want to be forever? In Alcoholics Anonymous, they talk about the step to healing, you have to recognize your higher power. This is a non-denominational group that's proven to help turn alcoholics around. And I think that we get addicted to our labels. I think that we get addicted to our badges of honor. I am very proud that when people meet me, they would not guess any iota of what I have been through in my life. And I'm proud of that. Not because I'm hiding it, but because I have a greater light than just what I've been through. These are events in my life. If I fell down and skinned my knee, I would not define my knee forever by the scar. I would look at my knee and I would see how it's something that helps me get upstairs and to move and to do all these different things. But we define a little aspect of an event, terrible and horrid as it is, we define ourselves by it. And then we use it as a crutch to say, well, I can't do that because of this. And I can't do that. And it feels good and it feels safe. And it's so hard. Hear me, to these listeners that are going, Leta, you don't get it. I get it. It's hard. But staying where we are doesn't get us any better. And why would I give my abuser that much power over me? Why would a big motivator has been my children? That when I was starting down this process of working on my healing, I did not want to raise kids if the world was going to be that ugly for them. I did not want my children to have to go through what I went through to become what I became. And so that's my job, to give them the goodness of life and to give them that foundation. And my children are amazing, happy, and wonderful people. And one day I sat them down and talked to them about, you're going to have peers that have been sexually abused. These are some warning signs. You need to encourage them to go talk to an adult. And my kids are the ones that recognize the kid that's being bullied and send them sweet little notes. Mom, this girl, nobody's being nice to her. I'm going to send her sweet little notes, and she won't know it's from me, but she'll know that somebody cares about her, because I was that girl. And so I can teach my children to be kinder and more loving people. But it all starts with me recognizing that I am of value. And when I recognize that I am of value, I can extend that circle out to my children, to my family, to my friends, to the world. But it starts with me stopping what I'm thinking negatively and saying, wait, is this what God wants for me? Is this where I'm supposed to be and how I'm supposed to feel all of the time? And for me, the answer was, there's something more, but that's the unknown, and that's scary. But you just take that first little step and you'll find your toe lights up. It seems like it's dark, or it seems like you can't go forward. God doesn't force the good on us, but as we move forward, we go, oh, that's not so bad. And, whatever light analogy you want to use, or stepping your foot into the water, it gets warmer, it gets lighter. And, step by step, you just move you into that, but it takes work. But the alternative for me was I would be dead. I look at women that are prostituting themselves, that are low self-esteem, and I go, if not by the grace of God, go I. That would have been me. And she can become me. She can become all the good things in life. So it's my job to say, come on, let's go do this. But we individually have to take responsibility for what we are thinking about and what we are allowing to be in the platform of our brain. And you fill it with good, and good will come. You fill it with bad, and as I say, poopy will come. And I've known some poop.
You have, and yet you've overcome. I mean, you're just this shining, brightness. And I love it so much that what I think really shines through from this call is you get the choice. And this is what you've chosen. And I think I hope that's what all the listeners can take away. Like, you get to choose, you guys. You get to choose what you take from any experience. And so take the good, take the lesson, learn the wisdom, and be better because of it.
And you got to stop what you're doing when you notice those negative emotions overtaking you. You got to stop and think about why. It's so easy to respond emotionally. But we are not animals. Fight or flight is not what we are. Our brains that's one part of our brain, is the fight or flight. But there's so much more to our brain that they say we're only using a small percentage of it. But we react without thinking. And if you start to think about why you're doing things and what you really want out of life, I wanted to be happy. That was a goal. And I got it. And I get a little frustrated. Women are like, oh, I can't. I have anxiety. Well, that's like me saying, oh, I can't. I was abused. Oh, I can't. I'm just going to give all of that power over to that incident, to that hurt, justified as it is. I am greater than what's happened to me. I'm greater than what I am at this moment. I'm a daughter of God, and He loves me. And I am raising little people. And I'm going to give them all the love and all the good. And I'm going to make mistakes because I'm human. And then I'm going to apologize to them. And they're going to get to learn how life works because they're seeing me live it. They're seeing me work hard and love hard and be kind and apologize and be accountable and trustworthy and loving. And my goal is to raise people that can do that. And that when bad things happen, they go, wait a minute, this is an event. We're just having a human experience here. And God entrusts us, we moms, with his little kids. And what we are doing as moms is, I'm a speaker, I'm a best-selling author, I run a, multi-million-dollar makeup company. I'm doing some pretty awesome stuff in my life, but those are not nearly as important as what I do as a mom.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love it so much. I just love the things that you've shared today and the ways that you've uplifted me and our audience. And, it's amazing to me that we've talked about hard things and horrible things that you've been through. And yet we can leave this conversation feeling uplifted. And I think that that's the biggest takeaway is that's for everybody. You can choose to be uplifted. You can choose the good. So I appreciate you being on the show so much, Leta. I'm sad we're out of time because I just love learning from you. And we are so excited for you about your book. I'm excited to hear all about that. So that'll be good.
Well, it'll be coming out this early, late summer.
Okay.
And I'd love all of your listeners to support it and get the message out there and, buy a book. So
definitely. All right. You'll have to keep us posted on when that comes out. So we'll keep an eye out for that. And Leta, thank you for being here. And thank you everyone for listening to Moms Who Know. Visit momswhoknowpodcast.com for show notes. And while you're there, be sure to get your copy of The Busy Mom's Guide to Effortless Weight Loss Without the Cravings. It's a free download and video training that will help you get in the best shape of your life. Tune in on Monday for the next episode of the Moms Who Know podcast.